Welcome. This video is just a brief overview of UDL implementation so that you can start to think about how you want to grow UDL in your own school in the upcoming school year. CAST's design grows out of research from the field of implementation science and tries to support administrators to proactively plan for the variability in their schools by giving them guidance on the different roles of participants and the general phases of the work. This is much less a recipe and more a set of ideas that can help you to think through the next steps in your school. To access the implementation worksheet, which will go into much more detail than I'm giving you here, you can go to bit.ly/implement UDL, and it is case sensitive, so it needs to be capital I implement, capital U, capital D, capital L. Phase 1 starts with exploration of UDL as a possible means to achieving the goals that you've already set for your school. If you've begun the Innovation Network, then likely you've already made it through this phase, but if you never laid some of the groundwork, it might be useful to go back and look at the suggestions in Phase 1 and see if there's anything that might be useful to address. Phase 2 is the preparation phase. CAST tried to guide you through this phase when you applied for the Innovation Network by having you think about the climate in your school, define a vision for what you wanted to get out of participation in the network, and recruit a team of early adopters who were interested in and dedicated to learning more. But if for whatever reason this didn't happen when you first joined, or if you're recruiting new members to the UDL team, it would be really useful to revisit this phase. I would imagine that many, if not most of you, are in the integration phase. Your UDL team's experimenting with UDL in the classroom, they're doing instructional rounds, setting goals for their own learning, and they're going to the face-to-face days that CAST offers. As you move into the 2019-2020 school year, this is the time to be thinking about how you're also providing professional learning to people who aren't part of the UDL team. So are you including them in instructional rounds? Are you modeling UDL in the PD that you're running? Does the language of UDL permeate all of the work within the school? I imagine that this is a place for many of you to do some deeper thinking with your implementation specialists as you start thinking about moving forward. Some of you may already be entering into the scaling phase of implementation, particularly if you worked with CAST for a few years before the Innovation Network began. In this phase, you should be thinking about putting systems in place that will support the growth of UDL throughout the school. If your school isn't already a full inclusion school, you want to make sure that you're creating and implementing a plan to ensure that no students are left out of the mainstream classroom. You may also want to think about making instructional rounds a school-wide protocol. In this phase, you want to ensure that teachers have common planning time and that you're thinking about how to include more and more staff members on your UDL team, or even create new UDL teams. The integration and scaling phases can both be pretty intense, so do make sure that you plan for enough time to really support teachers through these phases. The last phase of implementation is optimization. This is when you would be working with leaders outside of your school, like the superintendent, other principals in the district, or if you're in a small district, maybe even leaders of nearby districts, to move UDL to a larger scale, create systems for networking and supporting each other, and designing to ensure that UDL can thrive even through leadership changes. It might be helpful to print out this implementation bingo page that we've created. So just go through, mark off all the boxes that you think you're doing well, and hopefully this will give you a visual representation of where you are in your journey and what remains to be done. And again, if you want more details, you can go back to the implementation worksheet that I gave you at the beginning of the slideshow, bit.ly/implement UDL. And then sit down with your team and your implementation specialist to think about your next steps. If you'd like to get advice from other school leaders, it'd be great to check out these videos. Again, it's at bit.ly/implementation advice. And you can get their thoughts on things like using coaches to support UDL implementation. There's a video on teacher evaluation, on modeling UDL, UDL and PLCs. There's really a lot of great information there. I hope you found this helpful. If you have questions, as always, feel free to reach out to me, jlevine@cast.org, or to talk with your implementation specialist. We're really looking forward to working with you in the next school year.